Welcome to Women Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. I'm your host, Kathy Eggleston, and one of the things we attempt to do at the Women of Color Empowerment Institute at our annual conference is bring you lessons learned from top performers. And in fact, that's the title of today's show. At our annual conference, we had a terrific panel featuring Christina Norman from The Moth, Joiava Philpott from Cox Communications, and Tiffany Eubanks-Saunders from Bank of America Private Bank. Let's take a look at these women at the conference, properly introduced by our charter member, Sherlon McWater.
All right, we are going to begin on my far right. If you will just give a brief introduction of who you are as a top performer.
Greetings, I am delighted to be here. I am Joiava Philpott. As far as who I am in my position, I serve as the Senior Vice President and General Counsel of Law and Policy for Cox Communications. Cox is the largest privately held telecommunications company. It's headquartered in Atlanta. It has revenues that exceed $13 billion annually, and we have roughly 20,000 employees.
I am Tiffany Eubanks-Saunders, and my role is Managing Director, Head of Diverse Segments for Bank of America's Private Bank. So what does that really mean? So for the world's second largest financial institution, I sit 2 deep from our CEO. I report to the president of the private bank, who reports to our CEO.
So I've been an executive in media and entertainment. I was the president of VH1. I was the president of MTV. I launched the Oprah Winfrey Network. And now, thank you. And after so many years in for-profit media, making a lot of money for a lot of other people, I have now turned my attention to nonprofit media and entertainment. And I'm the chief creative officer of an organization called The Moth.
Didn't I tell you you were in the midst of greatness? Absolutely. So one of the things, we have a group of 40 under 40 here with us today, right? And we are just amazed, and we want to clap it up for the 40 under 40. Yes, yeah. Clap it up for 40 under 40 and those of us who have gone on from 40 under 40, okay? So what I'd like to do is for you to share with the 40 under 40. We're going to just come out the bat talking to 40 under 40 first, and we'll move on as we go. But 40 under 40, come from a different place, a different space. The world is different, right? In terms of what we do in the workplace, how we show up. We're working from home. We're working in our pajamas. We're doing all of those things, right? Some of y'all, including me, don't quite understand that. I need you at the office, right? But that's not the way it is. But one of the things about that is, in being a top performer, you have to connect with people, right? Connections are very important. I'd like for you to talk to them about connections and the importance of connection. And while we understand it's okay to work from home, but remember, if you're there 24/7, you're not necessarily making the connections that you may want and need to make. Can you start with that, one of you?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick off. So I will just say that a piece of advice that I received very early on in my career, probably in my late 30s, early 40s, was wherever you find yourself in your career, in your organizations, in your service groups, make sure you get to meet and get to know as many people as you can. We talk a lot about networking. Networking is an art, but really it is about human connections. It's about finding those places where you can meet, even within your differences. And so what I have learned is each time I move into a different environment or a different role or just a different audience, it is critical to make those human connections. Now, I am an attorney. I have a JD and I have an MBA in corporate finance. And so to many, the human, personable interactions may not be as obvious. But as a leader, it is really important to make sure that I present myself as being receptive, as being approachable. There are many cultural, barriers. We think a lot about, what it means to be one of very few or the only Black women or women of color in the room. And I know that earlier on in my career, I used to feel a little reserved because I felt as though people who didn't look like me, who weren't the same gender as me, who weren't in the same age group as myself, were not coming up to me, right? And I learned that it really is all about me stepping out and taking those actions. So I know we want to talk a little bit about what that looks like in a virtual, in a remote, or in a hybrid environment. But yes, what you said couldn't be more true. Prospering, I think, just in humanity, and let alone the workspace, is really all about those connections. And to the extent that we can be present, to the extent that we can be visible, it's important to do that. One of the things that I have been reflecting on in preparation for this panel is about doing hard things to really reach your goals. You can do things on the internet, you can showcase yourself on LinkedIn, you can do your social media. That's really not that hard. The hard thing is getting outside of your comfort zone, showing up, getting outside of your house when you really don't have to. Yes, you could sit and perform and probably do reasonably well. I have heard leaders say within my organization, and I have said it myself, I need to see people so that I can accurately, number one, evaluate them, but more importantly, I want to be able to sponsor and speak people up, but I can't do that if I don't see you in a room. So it is important to be there physically. That's the extra thing, that's the hard thing that will hopefully bring you unparalleled success. It will distinguish you from others.
It's a great point, many great points, and I will tell you up front, I am not for working from home. Old school banker. And I'm the highest ranking Black female driving revenue at Bank of America. Again, and I don't say that, trust me ladies, I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. I'm saying it to make the point that I could not be there working from home. I could not be in this position if I did not allow myself to be seen. If I didn't allow myself to be in the room and be in spaces and places where I could learn from other phenomenal women like you all. And so don't sell yourself short. They have me come, and it's interesting because they keep inviting me back even after they hear what I have to say, but they have me come at Bank of America to come and speak. Every summer we bring in about 2,000 interns, and we bring in about 2,000 new analysts. Most of them are women, and most of them are diverse. That's by design. It's intentional. We're bringing up the next generation of bankers. And what I tell them is, you can't learn what you need to learn from a screen. It just won't happen. And so for my 40 under 40 sisters who are in the room, do not sell yourself short. You have worked incredibly hard to get where you are today. You have achieved things, and many of you have achieved more in your careers than most in your families. Be the legacy that you want to see. Be the role model that you need to see. And recognize that you just can't do it if you don't establish those meaningful relationships. You can't do it alone, and like I said, you just can't do it from home. It's a reality.
Okay, I'm going to talk to the introverts in the room now. Because I know the importance and always knew the importance of building a network, but for me, as a younger executive, walking into a room like this was scary. And I didn't know where to start, and I didn't know where to begin, and I thought I was going to be judged. And I think the most important thing that I learned from that journey was to remain curious. So I sort of put myself in a position of asking people questions about themselves, because I don't want that focus on me. So there is a way for you to engage in this, even if it's sort of, as you said, outside of your comfort zone. The other thing that I always tell young people is, I learned so much at work from my peers. So being able to turn to that person next to me and saying, are they crazy? Did she just talk to you that way? Or, hey, I don't understand this. Can you help me? Was so critical to my development and building a peer group of people that were looking out for me, that we were looking out for each other, that we were sort of on this journey together. So I think that's a huge part of this as well. The other thing I would say is that as an older executive, one of the things that was important for me was to make sure that my humanity was always a part of this. So, work-life balance was really important. I had my kids very young, and I was trying to climb the corporate ladder at the same time. So really being able to sort of share with people that part of myself, not hide that part of myself. And I had a boss who would always talk about being able to bring my whole self to work. And bringing my whole self to work is, I think, really what helped people see me in a different way and not just a role and a function.
Beautiful.
Well, let me just suggest a bit of a modification. I want you to bring your best self to work. Because sometimes our whole selves, and depending on who you talk to, whole can be a little different. It can be a little challenging. And the reality is, ladies, we have to recognize the spaces that we're in. And you don't have to compromise, you don't have to sacrifice, but you have to recognize what room you're going to be in, and you need to bring your best self to that room unapologetically as a woman, because it's your superpower. I do believe that being a woman is a superpower if you know how to leverage it.
Great. Thank you.
Could I just add a point about those instances where you find yourself working from home, right? Because not all offices have an in-person experience. Some people, by the nature of their jobs, they are remote. And I think we're probably all beyond this by now, but we do want to be mindful of how we show up when we are remote. I know that during the pandemic, and it feels like it was, a gazillion years ago, we were figuring it out, and so we could have our sweats on, some people, and we were showing up, as our best selves, but recognizing we had lots of other things going around. But now we really can show up on screen in a very professional way, whatever that professional way looks, whatever it looks like for your company and for your environment. And so we do want to continue to be mindful of what our virtual online presence looks like, even from home.
Yeah, I work with a lot of really young people, and it's been interesting to sort of coach them through this as well as we come back to the office. Where I am, we have a mandatory 2-day week in the office. Again, the Moth believes in bringing people together through community. That first community is our workplace. So for us to be together and collaborate is very important. But I've also had to do some coaching with some of our younger staff about how they show up virtually. You can't be walking around with your phone shaking all over the place or whatever it is. It's like, and you have to have your screen on. You have to be present.
Yeah.
So.
Very important nuggets. Hopefully you're writing these things down.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com.
Now, one of the things I want to talk to this group about is rising through the ranks. Right? We're talking about top leaders. We're talking about people. You've heard that song, we started from the bottom, now we're here. Yeah. They ain't always been where they are right now, okay? Yeah, including myself. When I think about it, the country girl from Wauchula, I know y'all never heard of it, other than Sean and Bernadette and a few other people. Small country town, came here to be a judge, accomplished a goal. So your goals, your dreams, they're your goals and your dreams. If you never share them with anyone, how will they know? How will they know? So you do want to share. So when we're talking about rising through the ranks, what I'd like to do is just kind of, talk about that subject. MTV, right? You've heard of it. VH1, you've heard of it, right? Oprah Winfrey, you've heard of it. All of those things. And you, my friend, has done all that. And they all sit here. Look at them. They sit here like, no big deal. What's the big deal? Right? Like, yeah, one of those is a big deal to me, right? Oprah. But again, all of the things that you've done, including in sports, you had some experience there, and rising through the ranks. How did you manage that? What are some things that you would say to our sisters here, young and old, when you're trying to rise through the ranks? And I know it's very similar to some of the things we've talked about, but we're talking about taking it to the next level, right? You're not at that lower level anymore. You're trying to go higher.
So this is a little bit hard because sacrifice. There are things I wasn't there for. There were things I missed. There were times when I couldn't be present for my family in ways that I regret. I love the experiences that I've had. I love the impact that it's had on my family. So funny, when I got to VH1, my younger daughter was probably around 7. And that Halloween, she had this little suit. She had this blue and white suit that she would wear. I don't know where I got it from her. It was like this suit. So she wants to wear the suit for Halloween. And she's got a suit and she's got a bag. And my friend said to me, "Dummy, she's you." She's dressed up as a businesswoman. And I was like, oh my God, like that was so cool to me. I was like, she wanted to be me. So, yeah, there was a lot of sacrifice, but it also drove some ambition for my daughters as well. So, yeah, there were a lot of times when I stayed too late, worked too hard, gave up something, but, I think it worked out. There was another time that I can recall when I had a horrible boss, one of these awful guys that I worked for. And he had just gotten into the job, and he you look back at now and you're like, oh, that was sexual harassment. But he was like, well, too bad you have a family to go home to, or I'd suggest we get a bottle of wine and work here and work this problem out. So I pick up the phone, I call my husband, and he said, stay your ass right there. I got this. Don't run, and be in that room, and be present, and show what you got. So, yeah, it's tough. It is really a tough moment, and there are trade-offs to make, there are sacrifices to make. Not all of them are worth it. I certainly wouldn't advocate for the level of sacrifice in some cases that I did. But there are also amazing opportunities. I got to travel the world. I got to meet amazing people. I got to be at the front row of so many exciting things, and I would never give any of that up.
Yeah. And, what we know to be true, this is not just, a thought. We know for a fact that Black women are the most educated women on earth. We know this, right? And I would argue women of color are the most educated women on earth. Oftentimes, we shy away from, we make ourselves small to make others look big, because we're the only ones in the room. As I mentioned to you all, there was a point in my career where I was the first and the only. And I could have very easily said, you know what, I don't want to, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to do this. But I had to make a decision that if it wasn't going to be me, who was it going to be? And if it wasn't now, when? And so I would encourage each of you to be audacious in your aspiration. There is probably not one thing you can't do if you set your mind to it. But you got to get out of your own heads. You got to let society move away from the space in your brain that says you can't, because you have been doing to be where you are today. And you have to not be afraid of failure. I have always said the best lessons I've ever learned have been when I haven't succeeded. I mean, think about it. When you're successful, you don't think about it. You just move on to the next thing. When you fail or fall on your ass, you really sit in that place for a minute, right? And we need to sit in it and understand, what should we have done differently and what are we going to do differently? And then you move on. Don't wallow in it. Don't have a situation where you are your own worst enemy you're coming down on yourself harder than anybody else. Learn the lesson, pack it in your toolkit, and move to the next thing. And allow that to not keep you from striving for the things that don't seem realistic for you. Men have no issue doing this at all. It's interesting to me how many people will get on my calendar, how many men will get on my calendar and say, oh, well, I want your job. Okay. So I say, well, let's go through your, and I'm looking at the bio or the resume and we have a conversation. I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? What? Why would you? But that's how we teach our men, right? That's what we teach our boys. Like, strive for the moon and hope you hit the stars, right? And our girls, we say, we just want you to move along and get along. Sometimes you can't get along. Sometimes you have to be your own advocate and, to the point that was made before, how do you break to the next, how do you create transformational change in your career, which will then change your life? It's being unapologetically audacious in your aspiration.
I love that. Yeah. Unapologetically audacious in your aspirations. So I'll just say a couple of things about kind of moving ahead. And so if we are all aspirational, and I believe we all are, I believe it's really important to be a student of leadership, a lifelong learner. Really, leadership and kind of where you find yourself at any given moment is really just, it's an accumulation of your life's experiences. And so as you think about where you want to be, I'm one of those individuals that I think it's infinitely important to know your why. And I think everybody's why is personal, and I don't think it's the sort of thing that is intended to be judged. One individual's why are they here? What are they aspiring to be? It may be born from different life circumstances in terms of their families, generations. Some people seek fame. Some people seek the finances. Some just really want to make the world a better place and they want to invest in others. But I would say as you continue along your path, one of the things that I view as really important is the leaders. I'm talking about being a student of leadership, studying the leaders in your organizations and in your life and understanding what good leaders look like. And if you happen to work for a person who does not understand that there's a cost related to working for a dead-end boss. We can't always just, quickly upend where we are until maybe we have the next opportunity, but use those opportunities as learnings in terms of how you will make better impacts. Make sure that you're working for people that are really speaking you up and that are investing in you. And if they aren't, think about a path for your next step, your next journey.
And the one thing that I would add, because it's a great point, be strategic is basically what you're saying. Surround yourself with a sister circle. You cannot do this alone. You cannot do it by yourself. You might be sitting in those rooms alone, but you need to know that you got a group of girls who have your back. I'm going to date myself here for a minute. Before somebody was dating themselves in terms of talking about Perry Mason and I Love Lucy. So in my day, the term for a bag was pocketbook. And so I've always had this code term with my girls who were sitting alongside with me or sitting around, that whenever one of us says, okay, I need to grab my pocketbook, that's code for, okay, some mess has gone down. We got to figure this out. Let's go meet at the nearest bar, and we're gonna have a debrief, right? And that's what you have to do. Just like today. I mean, when I walked into the room, you all were up dancing, and there's music on. I mean, the empowerment, the sisterhood was palpable. And you got to make sure you have that in your place of work as well, with a group of women you trust, who you admire, and who you know are going to have your back, because there will be times, and they will be many, where you will be tested and you will be challenged. Yes. And it's not going to be fair and it's not going to be easy. But I promise you, if you surround yourself with a tribe of women who support you, along with all this great advice, then there's nothing you can't overcome.
These women were just amazing. I mean, they brought it.
Completely. I have to say, it's not every day you have a chance to have conversations with women such as these.
Ladies who are at the top of their game. I mean, you can't deny it. Women who really put the work in to be top performers, which is one of the themes of our conference.
True. These top performers have taught us a lot. One of the things that we listened to was the fact that they didn't seem to be stoppable.
No.
Meaning
no.
nobody's going to tell them, hey, you can't do this or you can't achieve that.
Talk about discipline. They exhibited a lot of discipline in terms of how they got to where they are right now. And I think that speaks volumes. And, you know, I kept thinking about what does it take and how do you do the type of planning to be in positions where those top performers are? And one of the things, and I think you and I are top performers too, Michelle. But anyway, I think one of the things that I've done over the years is I've journaled. Writing things down. I think that really does something in your brain that helps to solidify your thoughts and your behaviors.
I think that's what today they call visioning. If you write it down, you can see it.
That's right, that's right. So let me ask you, top performer, how do you prioritize?
Well, it seems to be easy for me in a sense. I do sacrifice certain things, and I think that the sacrifices sometimes are part of your quality of life. You do sacrifice it in order to prioritize things that you're trying to achieve, whether it is the work that you do or even prioritizing giving back, because I think that's a duty as well. You can't just...
It's like a job sometimes.
It
right?
is, because you can't just achieve for yourself and then
That's
leave
right.
no legacy because
That's
you've
right.
done nothing to contribute to the world. So we're trying to do a little bit of both.
I love that. And we do that with the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. And so there are so many ways to get involved. Learn more about us at the nationalwomenofcolor.com website. Also go onto our Facebook page, our social media pages, and come to our conferences that you'll hear about every year if you follow us on social media.
So again, performing at a high level requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. It may, for some, require journaling, stress management, all of the above. But at the end of the day, you want to perform for the benefit or for the good of all.
And so until the next time,
Be empowered.